Hey there, it's Blair here at Time Trades. Thanks for joining me today. It is Sunday, April 7th, and this is your subscriber video. This is where we left things off last week. We had a forecast kind of correction, I guess, for the middle of the week, along with a forecast high back the prior week, Wednesday, Thursday, March 27th, 28th. So we're going to give ourselves a rating for this box down here, which was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday earlier in the week, calling for a bit of a decline early in the week. So because we got that wick down into the target box, that is an A by my standards. So that was a good forecast. We also have a new forecast box that started on Friday and has not completed, and that ends on Tuesday. And we're going to talk about how we're going to update that going forward here. I'm going to just hide that because that is part of the future forecast. I'm not ready to talk about that yet. So let's talk about what's happening. Eventful week next week. We've got a solar eclipse in North America on Monday, so that is pretty visible in social media. Eclipses are interesting to me, but just because they identify the periods of gravitational locking really between Earth, Moon, and Sun. The more interesting points from a financial trading standpoint tend to be halfway between eclipses. So obviously we're a few months away from halfway between eclipses. So I don't expect too much of a reaction in the markets on eclipse day. There's some other very interesting astrophysics going on that I'll talk about later this week. On Tuesday, we have Mars Uranus 15 degrees. So this is our synodic cycle that is anchored to December 27th, 2021, the old all-time high from the 2021 bull market, the post-COVID bull market. And this Mars-Uranus 15 cycle has been spinning out major inflection points ever since, right? Very reliable. And we can zoom out a little bit and just sort of take a quick look here at how good it's been. This is why it's still on my chart. Because it has been very reliable in terms of identifying pivots. So that is coming up Tuesday. That to me is actually much more interesting than the eclipse. So you can see here how it caught the low on March 15th. It caught the low on February 20th. It caught the high on January 24th. It caught the high on December 28th. It caught the high on November 29th. It caught the low within 2 days of October 30th. I could go on and on, but you get the point. It is something worth trusting. Okay, so we've got that on Tuesday, more interesting than the eclipse. And then we've got the juice. I have been talking nonstop about the juice. Every one of my videos for the last few weeks have talked about it. And in fact, I updated the juice definition based on some work I did over the last week on the website. So we can go to the website and I can show you what that looks like now. So we've got that. All right, so this is the latest iteration of the juice. It's been refined and updated to be even more influential. It's a measure of alignment between planets. And I've narrowed this down to include only alignments that include the Earth. Okay, so that's the optimization that I made. That's what this orange line is here. So we're looking for juice peaks. All right, so we've got a juice peak coming up on the 11th, which is Thursday. And that is a period of peak alignment. And then on Friday, we have, if we go to the short-term waves, the yellow line here is Mercury speed. So on Friday, I've we have a low in Mercury speed, because of course Mercury speed is negative. It's representing Mercury retrograde right now. So this is speed relative to the Earth. And often we see markets slow down or correct during periods when Mercury is declining in speed. Not necessarily retrograde, okay? Because you can have Mercury accelerating, but still have a negative speed relative to the Earth. So still meeting the definition of retrograde. But I'm more interested in this downslope here. That tends to be the period when we do get corrections in price. Okay, so we get a speed low in Mercury on Friday. All right. Also, if we go and take a look at the time trades machine learning indicator, we can see we've got probabilities of a pivot here, the 17th and 18th in NDX, peaking on the 18th. We go and take a look at the Qs. We've got probabilities of a pivot here on the 17th. Now, this is non-directional pivots, okay? So it could be a pivot low or a pivot high, I don't know. But given everything else that's going on in the sky, I am interpreting this as a pivot low. So that's around the 17th and 18th, okay? So I was talking about the juice. Let's go back and complete that thought. So when we take a look at our juice spikes here, it's the same for all symbols. So we've got that juice spike there on the 11th. Okay. So what I'm going to do to reflect all of this information, I'm going to slide this upper target box over. Okay. I want it to start on Tuesday. There, it's starting on Monday. Now it's starting on Tuesday. And I want it to end on the day of that juice spike in case we see a move up on Tuesday. So it's going to start on the day of the Mars-Uranus 15. It's going to end on the day of the juice spike. That's the logic for time. Price-wise, I do like this teal line. This teal line is 1/8 of a white magic level. White magic levels are Fibonacci growth spirals. I find when you divide those into eighths, as suggested by time traded user T West, that these lines tend to be very important and provide very reliable support and resistance levels. And you can see here how that has indeed happened with wicks over this teal line here, March 8th and on March 21st. So we may see a wick up over the teal line. I'll lift it up here just in case we get something like that. But I'm not expecting much of a separation beyond there. Okay. And then after that, I do think we get a deeper correction. So I'm going to unhide the forecast path. We can talk a little bit about why I think this is going to take place. So we're going to shift that over here. We're going to shift this over here. All right, so now we've got this lower guy over here, and this starts on the 17th, ends on the 19th. So I want to remind everyone about those dates. This is partly driven by the machine learning dates, which peak on the 17th. Okay. And it's also falling in this little trough between juice spikes, right? Juice spikes are interesting to me because they almost always resolve bullish. Not always, but most of the time they resolve bullish. So it's one of the few astro points that are kind of unidirectional. A lot of the astro points that I've been tracking are omnidirectional, bidirectional, I guess. They can be pivot high, pivot low, moves up, moves down, but juice spikes tend to be about 80-20, 90-10 bullish. So this is why we've got that pivot high ending the 11th and why we are that target box, that target high box ending the 11th, and we've got a low around the 17th here. Okay, so we've got this low box starting the 17th, 18th, 19th, because it's in that trough between juice spikes. Now, another reason why is one of the things that I lean on heavily in time trades, and you guys all have access to this as well, is the speed index. Okay, so I want to turn off the planetary lines just so it's easier to read the speed index. Speed index is part of the planetary lines script. And this is a composite of the relative speed of multiple planets. And what we're seeing here is in general, inflections in the speed index tend to indicate pivots in the market. And you can see how that has kind of held true. So this is another reason why we've got this target box up here, is that we see the speed index making an inflection high, a pivot high around April 9th, and then declining. Okay, so even though Mercury is going to be starting to accelerate in speed later in the week, the rest of the planets are going to be declining in relative speed later in the week. Okay, and of course, part of that has to do with Venus turning the corner, entering interval 3, right? Venus intervals are also part of the time trade script. Interval 2 is a period of maximum Venus speed away from Earth. And that's starting to slow down now as it has turned the corner or crossed into interval 3 from interval 2. So it's going to be slowing relative to Earth. And that's starting to show up in the speed index here. Okay, so why these prices for this target box? This is why I've got it here from a time standpoint, but why these prices from a price standpoint? So I'm going to unhide a little fib retracement here. And this fib is drawn from the October low all the way up to the March high, and 382 retracement would bring us back to about 17,000 NQ, right on that speed index low. Okay, and also I think it could that because we've had a couple of wicks up above this teal 1/8 level, I think we could flush down and touch this next lower one at 17.5. If we get a mild pullback, it could stop around the 0.146 retracement up here. Okay, so that's part of the logic for this this target box here. So yeah, could be anywhere in there, but we've got a good 3-day time window. It's a pretty wide price window, but we'll probably be able to refine that down as we take a look at the price action there. And then after that, we see the speed index starting to move up. We see some big juice spikes coming up. So if we flip over to time trades, we can see this big juice spike, and we see this massive cluster of probabilities of a move. Okay, so roughly after the 17th, 18th, 19th, I think we just launch right up with this juice spike here on the 29th being a big day, and that will likely continue up until the speed index peaks on May 8th. Could stop a little earlier, could stop with any of these declination events, because we know that declination events can create inversions in the speed index. So we'll see. But this is kind of the overall map that I'm looking at for the next little bit. And I just love how these Mars-Uranus 15-degree cycles been so incredibly reliable, right? So one last peak here, flush down, and then launch up with the help of a couple of juice spikes into we might get all the way up to the next teal level here at 19,800. So prepare yourself mentally. There's going to be some volatility for the next month or so as we get through this time period. A lot of interesting astro, lots of major conjunctions between major planets. I think that'll be reflected in the asset prices as we watch those going forward. So that is the update for QQQ. Let's take a quick look at Tesla. I want to share with you guys this analysis, or an update to this analysis that I originally created a couple weeks ago. And at the same time, I also want to talk about an update to a new feature. So in the latest time trades planetary lines here, so this is my configuration for planetary lines, and planetary lines is a big reason for this forecast for Tesla, okay? So we've got a scale to 103.625. The user guide explains why those numbers are what they are. We've got the nodes, we've got Mercury, Venus, and Mars. I love having the nodes on because they tend to identify major pivots in price. Now, I pushed up an update earlier this week to planetary lines, and you can see I'm over here in the data window. And if you're not familiar with the data window, it is kind of an obscure feature of TradingView. But when you've got planetary lines on your chart, or at least the latest version, you can go over here, click on this thing here that says object tree and data window, and you can choose between the object tree or the data window. And when you have the data window on, of course, you can see the high-low price, and as you move your mouse, everything updates. But the planetary line script is also showing the location of the planets in heliocentric, geocentric, and when you scroll down, synodic. So if you're not familiar with synodic interval is when we're measuring the distance between two planets. So it always takes the pattern of the fast inner planet followed by the slower outer planet. And we're measuring the distance between those, not the location, okay? So it's a measure of the degree of separation between these synodic pairs, okay? Synodic means meeting. What is interesting about Tesla is if you go over here and you take a look at the angles that existed on March 14th, okay? And take a look at some of the heliocentric angles over here. So I'm going to scroll up and I'm going to mouse over March 14th. And notice that Mercury helio is close to 60 degrees. Venus helio is close to 300 degrees. Mars helio is also close to 300 degrees. So this is basically a Mars-Venus conjunction heliocentrically, right? And you can see that here in the lines, right? Where we've got the orange Mars line crossing the pink Venus line. The red Mars line is crossing the pink Venus line. We also have the orange Mercury line in the same spot, but that's at a different degree because of how the values are calculated. But basically, you can confirm just from the data window, Venus and Mars are in the same place, okay? They're both at like 300 degrees roughly. So this tells me that this bar is really important. And I can also see it's really important because it tapped the south node, right? So I'm going to continue to have a long bias in Tesla with risk against this low, right? This breaks down, we see price breakdown below this March 14th because of the angles that existed on this day. I'm wrong, right? So that's my risk, that's my stop. But if we just hide this, like the premise of the trade, if you saw that video from like 2 or 3 weeks ago, It's all based on Venus helio 0 degrees, which is this pink vertical line here, right? So what I've done is I've measured, what I did is I noticed that 12 to 13 to 14 bars before those pink lines go vertical, we get a heck of a good buying opportunity. We had one here August 18th. We had one here on January 6th. Scroll back again. Had another one over here on May 24th. Now, this one here that we're in right now is it's 12 bars. Let's see here. It's 12 bars, and it was as of April 2nd. Okay. So it was a pretty choppy week for Tesla, but still holding above the key levels from March 14th. So I continue to be long, have a bias long Tesla here. And I do think that we get a push up maybe into earnings on the earnings are coming up on the 23rd. Do expect to see a push up. We could even get into the 200s here if we go from node to node. Okay, so that would be kind of like a very positive outcome to this trade, but it would also make a lot of sense because we can see the last time there was a big pivot over here at that node level on February 29th as well. So again, very interesting trading opportunities here in Tesla. There's a great example too of how to use the Planetary line script and use it to look for patterns in your assets, in your favorite symbols that you trade. Again, my preference is to combine, slow planets or slow locations like the node with faster planets like Mercury, Venus, and Mars. That's roughly the time frame I like to trade. If you're a position trader, longer term position trader, you want to work with the outer slower planets, Jupiter and Saturn, and look for locations and pivots around there. Okay, so that's it for a Tesla update. I'll be back to talk about Bitcoin. All right, we're back and looking at juice for Bitcoin here. So again, juice is the same across all symbols. But what's interesting in the machine learning for Bitcoin is we have a giant cluster of high probability big move days peaking on the 16th. So of course, the big question here is it a move up or is it a move down, right? Because we don't know. It's non-directional moves. So let's go over to TradingView and take a look at where we left things off. All right. Now I just can't get over how accurate and important Mercury is for Bitcoin. If you're not tracking Mercury on Bitcoin, you're missing out big time. So if we even zoom into like a 30-day or 30-minute time interval, you can see this old target box here, how Bitcoin dipped down into that target box and then moved up. You can also see how these Mercury lines up here acted as resistance for Bitcoin and then provided support. And the South Node line up here at 70,000 was resistance, hit the Mercury or synodic, and then flushed down to the same level, just one cycle lower, one notch lower, down here at 64, and has since recovered up here. So what's next? We have two rulers on the chart. This top one here is anchored to November 8th, 2022. All right. And it shows a lot of synodic cycles there. Okay. And this bottom ruler is newer. This guy is anchored to January 22nd, 2024. And you can see the cycles that I'm tracking here: sidereal moon, synodic moon, which is the combination of sun and moon. So the second one, synodic moon, is what's behind phases of the moon, full moon, new moon. And then we've got Mercury and Venus. All right, so we can see how Mercury 91 lines up pretty good with tops, right? And the other thing that we've been tracking is you can see how the elliptical orbit of Mercury generates these patterns of compression and stretching in the Mercury-Earth synodic movements, right? So right now they're starting to stretch out, okay? And if we go back to the daily and take a look at what happened the last time, that's really all I do is I just draw lines on the chart and ask myself, what happened the last time we got this stretch? So the last time we got this stretch was shortly after Mercury Helio 180, and that's where the lines cross, but not vertically cross like that. So where the lines cross, Mercury Helio 180, we got that push up into about 48K. And then you can see Mercury Earth started stretching out, okay? And it was during that stretching out phase that we got the flush back down, and it went down basically 1.5 node lengths. So if you measure this is 1 node length, and that's half. So starting from the south node again is 1, north node is a half. So if the same thing happens here, right? We're up here in the south node and we go down 1.5, that brings us to about 62. Okay. And then we started the push up just as Mercury started compressing again. And that's going to happen over, is it over here, over here? I have to measure it out. So it might, I think it's going to start compressing again over in this area. All right. So you can see how I'm using basically this January time period as an analog to make a forecast going forward. So I think we're going to see like basically a 1.5 node level correction in Bitcoin down to about the 62 area. I've got some buffer around that. Maybe that's a little bit too aggressive. Maybe it should be narrower. There we go. And it's also centered around this Venus 49, right? Because Venus 49 seems to indicate the low before the pump, right? So if we go back in time and look at Venus 49, it is a very good indicator for the low before the pump, okay? So that's the basis for this new target box over here on Bitcoin. And it's centered around where the machine learning is showing a pivot, basically April 24th. So if we go back to time trades, we see April 24th as the center point of a pivot. I think that's going to be a pivot low, okay? And then I think we pump up after that. All right. Again, using this last Mercury Helio orbit as an analog there to guide the forecast going forward. Yeah, then I think we push up into May here and probably make major new high in late May, right around the Mercury Helio 0-degree mark. All right. So that is my interpretation of Bitcoin. I'll be back in a sec on gold. All right, we're back to finish up the video with gold, and we were anticipating that there could be a intermediate term or short-term high on Wednesday, April 4th, because of this Venus-Earth 36-degree cycle, which has been spinning out some fairly good highs since October 6th, 36, 36, 36. This worked for about a day, and then Friday happened, and we got a massive pump up. So at this stage, I'm not really feeling like I've got much of an edge in gold. Certainly don't want to buy up here. It's just in blast off mode, and we're coming up to the blue earth lines, which you can see it has acted as resistance before, here and here and here. So these are not lines to be ignored. And we also have this teal 1/8 of a magic level line up here at 2377. And you can see how that was support over here and down at 1996. All right. So what I'm going to be doing is just standing aside and waiting here. If we flip over to time trades, we can see that we've got a declining set of probabilities of a move, obviously a move up, but that energy is dissipating, and we've got increasing probabilities of a pivot. There's a peak on April 11th and then another peak on April 17th. So I think in the next few days we are going to see a short-term top on gold. I'd be happy to jump in on a swing trade here on gold on a pullback. I think we may see a pullback in the next 3 or 4 days. That's really what I'm looking for here. I'm going to keep doing some analysis with the ruler to try and pinpoint a good entry time on gold. But for now, it's just letting this move play out. We're closer to the end of this move than the beginning, and we've got some pretty important overhead levels that I think it's going to struggle to get through. So that's my quick assessment on gold. That's it for me. Please remember that the contents of this video are for educational purposes only. This is not financial advice. Trading carries lots of risk. And remember, always manage your risk. That's job one as a trader. And we'll talk to you again next weekend. Thanks for using time trades. Bye now.